One of the most recent data shows the average daily protein intake for women in the United States is 69 grams per day. Now, protein intake isn't just essential if you're trying to lose fat and build muscle. Protein is especially important for repair and maintenance of your hair, your nail, rebuilding your tissues, and even your skin. If you didn't know, your hair and your nails are made of something called keratin, and in order to produce more keratin, that requires some protein synthesis. Protein is also essential for hormone production, your immune function, and just helping transport nutrients and oxygens into your bloodstream and store molecules like iron. And then there was a new study that showed women who ate lower amounts of protein, along with like vitamin D and B12, it was associated with a higher likely chance that you're gonna have really painful cramps during your menstrual cycle. So no, protein is just not essential just to help you build muscle, but it is by far one of the most important macronutrients. So less protein means more cramps. And so we don't want that. So let's figure out ways how we're going to prevent that. And I know if you're watching this video, you're more than likely needing to watch this video because you're trying to incorporate more protein into your diet so that way it can help you lose fat and build muscle a little bit more efficiently. And as someone who eats 130 grams like without even thinking about it, I have some tips I'm going to share with you. Before we get into it, make sure you like and make sure you subscribe because I got a whole bunch of videos that I know that are going to be helpful for you in the future if your goal is to lose fat and build muscle. Okay, so tip number 1, stop skipping breakfast. Trying to do intermittent fasting or thinking that if you're not going to eat then you're going to burn fat, it doesn't work like that. Yes, you are burning fat as an energy source, but you are not actually burning fat in the sense that you think you are. A lot of the times when you skip breakfast, it's going to lead to an increased hunger. You're more than likely to overeat later in the day. And this is where you can start making poor nutrient choices because your body is just so deprived of nutrients that you're more likely to eat whatever is in front of you. You're less likely to have control over your impulses. Not to mention your energy levels are going to flop. This is why you feel so lethargic by the end of the day, even if you feel like you didn't do a lot. And just in general, the more protein you're able to consume in the morning, you less have to worry about it towards the end of the day. It's a lot more annoying to try and fit those last 20 to 30 grams of protein at the end of the day versus if you just ate something small in the morning like a cup of yogurt with some boiled eggs. And if you're someone who struggles to work out in the evening, by skipping breakfast, this is also how your energy levels plummet and why you feel like you just don't have the energy or what you think is the discipline to actually go to the gym because you have no energy. And for my PCOS girlies, skipping breakfast is literally the worst thing you can do because when you skip breakfast, you are putting your body into stress, and stress is what causes high level of cortisol, which is not going to be good if you already have elevating hormone levels. So don't skip breakfast. Try to make an effort the night before to either prep your breakfast in advance, or if you really have to, there's no harm in getting breakfast from outside. Just make sure that it has some form of protein. The second tip I have for you is pre-log your meals the night before. When I do this, this forces me to plan ahead so I can decide what I'm going to eat accordingly to my day. It also gives me a visual of all the foods that I ate hypothetically if I were to. And then that way, if there's any gaps, then I know exactly how to fill in whatever needs to be filled. And keep in mind, I'm someone who doesn't mind eating the same meal for at least 2 or 3 days. So I know that whatever I pre-log, the measurements are going to stay the same, the amount and the type of food. So that way it's just a matter of just going into my logged list and just adding from what is already saved. If you are somebody who doesn't like to measure out their foods or doesn't like to track, then you can even have just a food journal just to write down everything you ate that day. You can always just track your protein and then the calories that you ate for that day. Because honestly, that's kind of what I do. Whenever I just kind of want to break from tracking food, I no longer care about the amount of macros. I don't try to be perfect in trying to hit every tiny little goal. I just focus on the protein and calories just to make sure that I'm A, eating enough, and B, I'm eating enough protein. The third tip is I make sure that every meal has 40 grams of protein. And I know that seems like a lot, but there are so many different ways that you can make this happen. So like let's say for breakfast, if you were to mix in 2 whole eggs plus a cup of egg whites, make a scrambled egg out of that and have like 4 slices of turkey bacon. I say turkey bacon because it's going to be less in the fats and higher in the protein. That's pretty much already like 40 grams. You can sprinkle on some cheese, like the reduced fat type of cheese, and that's already like another 6 to 7 grams of protein. All of that alone is basically 40 grams. Another thing I like to make is what's called an air fried chicken sandwich. The sandwich alone is probably like 20 grams of protein. The actual chicken slab is like 20 grams. And then I use a keto bun just because it's lower in the calories. It has a high fiber and protein content for the average bun. And because just those two alone is like 20 grams, then I'll pair it with something like Quest chips. And already in that alone, it's like close to 50 grams. And it's a pretty low calorie meal. So then if I feel like eating something sweet after, I know I have the flexibility in my calories to do that. So you kind of see that all of this stuff is going to come together because as you pre-log, you'll kind of see what foods you're already about to eat. You can fill in the gaps because let's say if one meal that you thought was going to be high in protein ends up being like 15 to 20 grams, you can pair it with something to help make it a little bit more higher protein. So let's say you want to make sure you have the most amount of protein in your breakfast. So instead of just having like those 2 eggs plus a cup of egg whites and some shredded cheese on it, if you want just that little bit boost of protein just so it's less to worry about for lunch and dinner, you could pair it with like a tiny little yogurt for another 15 grams, and you basically already hit 65 grams of protein in that meal alone. So you're pretty much already more than halfway to eating 100 grams already just for breakfast. And if you're thinking that this is just way too much food, there's no way you can eat this much, when you start increasing your NEAT, which is just your non-exercise activity, doing more chores in the house, and when you strength train and actually train with the right intensity, eating this much is no longer an issue. If anything, you'll be glad to be having a whole plate of food that is neither high in calories, but is also high in protein. And the longer that you put your body through increased exercise and strength training, you're gonna find that your hungers are spiking through the roof. And if that's not already happening for you, you're probably not training hard enough. And I don't mean you need to start incorporating cardio. It just means that you're not pushing yourself in your resistance training. But that is a separate video that I will happily do. We're just going to talk about the protein intake. My fifth and final tip is just finding protein hacks. Find recipes that you enjoy already cooking and see where you can sub to put in some protein. So for example, let's say you're someone who loves curry. Instead of using like whipping cream or like heavy whipping cream, whatever it's called, you could probably sub Greek yogurt into it. One of the biggest trends right now is using cottage cheese to make sauces and even salad dressing, because I promise you, once you blend it, add in some spices, you're not even gonna ever know that it was cottage cheese. I've even used cottage cheese to make like baked goods, like a high protein banana bread. I've made that before using cottage cheese, and you can't even tell the difference. There are even some recipes out there that use Greek yogurt. Non-fat Greek yogurt is also really good for making sauces and dressings. It just depends on your taste if you want that slightly tart flavor. But that's honestly why I prefer the cottage cheese, because since it doesn't have that tart flavor, it's easier to make pasta sauces out of it. Another thing that I made that I ate on rotation every single day on my deficit was high protein pancakes. These high protein pancakes were nearly 60 grams of protein for 400 calories. That is crazy when you think about it, because usually pancakes just tend to be nothing but like 400 to 600 calories with no protein in it. So finding these little hacks can really make it easier to be able to get in your protein intake. And don't worry, I'm not just going to talk about these recipes and leave you high and dry. I created a free PDF where you can download 13 of my most favorite high protein dishes that include pasta, the protein pancakes, and so many other different types of recipes that you can make in less than 45 minutes. If you want that, I'll put the link in the description so you can download it. But those are my 5 tips. So if this was incredibly helpful, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.